So on my trip to training camp, one name kept coming up over and over and over again. That's next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Travis Rogers. I am your host for Locked On Rams. And of course, I am your host for the Rams pre, half, and post-game show on their flagship station, ESPN 710, right here in Los Angeles. I've been doing that since the Rams came back to LA way back in 2016, doing that one with my pal and friend and co-host Kirk Morrison. Thanks for making us part of what you do every single day. Now, make sure you click that subscribe button in your podcast feed. That way you're going to get Locked On Rams in your feed every single day. And after you do that, why don't you head on over to Locked On Rams on our YouTube channel as well. And that way you can check that out for all of your Rams content there also. Okay, so we have a good one for you. So Bobby Wagner had a pick six in training camp the other day. I want to talk about that and what that may mean. And it's just, Bobby Wagner feels like one of those guys that maybe we haven't given quite enough attention to. That's coming up in just a little bit. We'll talk about some Rams injuries and to a couple of very, very important guys. It's the first time that at least this training camp that I thought, okay, well, maybe this isn't the best news in the world. So we'll have a little injury update coming up in just a little bit. But I want to start right here. I want to start with something that the further I got away from it on Saturday, the more I was struck by it. And I want to talk about a name that kept coming up over and over again at camp. And it was a name that sometimes I would bring up. It was a name that just about every single one of our guests that day brought up. And it's a name that really isn't even on the team anymore. It's somebody that's around the team a lot. It's somebody that had an outsized impact on what this organization became. It's somebody that had an incredible impact on them winning the Super Bowl last year, but he retired. And of course, I'm talking about Andrew Whitworth. Every single person that I talked to brought up Andrew Whitworth, sometimes because they were prompted, but more often than not, it's just because they're talking about, the title defense that's going to start here in about a month and trying to run it back and trying to become the first team to win a Super Bowl in back-to-back seasons since the Patriots did it about 20 years ago. What's the biggest missing piece? Andrew Whitworth. And, you hear Von Miller and you'll hear some other names that come up along the way, but Austin Corbett and whatnot. But Andrew Whitworth's name is the one that came up over and over again. I spoke with Rob Havenstein at training camp on Saturday, and he talked about how big of an impact he had on him. Rob Havenstein's been in the league a long time. Rob Havenstein is nearly a 10-year veteran of this league. He's been around a bit. He's played very well in this league. He's been a very good player for the Rams. But he was talking about, and I asked him about what difference, is it about where do you put your hands? How do you set your feet? And all these things. He says, yeah, it's a lot about that. It's a lot about how you put your hands and where you set your feet and the techniques of your position, to be sure. But he also said it has just as much, if not more, to do with the person that he was. And he talked about how Andrew Whitworth helped him develop who he is off of the football field, and talked about how he develops, just not necessarily just as a football player, but as a man and as a human being in and around, his family and his other teammates and just being alive in the world. And he said something about Whitworth. He said he has this ability to care deeply about the person, not just the football player, to care deeply about who you are as a human being. And he went on to talk about the impact that he's had in his life. Talked to Raheem Morris. We were talking about leadership. He mentioned Andrew Whitworth. Talked to Mina Kimes from ESPN. She came by. Her first of all, they're going to be missing Andrew Whitworth. We talked with Les Snead, and it came up that, it's going to be, Andrew Whitworth is going to be difficult to replace. I think there's a real, I don't want to say a vacuum, because that to me connotates some sort of negativity. And I don't think it's a negative, but it's certainly something that you want to be aware of. It's certainly something that I think that the Rams need to be cognizant of. And that is, who is that guy? I was watching with my sons the other day. There's something on YouTube. It's kind of a highlight rip of the Super Bowl from a few months ago, and it's all the usual suspects, right? It's OBJ, it's Cooper Kupp, it's Matthew Stafford, it's Sean McVay, right? Aaron Donald, of course. Um, and a ton of Andrew Whitworth. And it wasn't just that he's blocking this guy or he's making sure that Matthew Stafford or he's got a commenter. It's just this presence that he had. It's this aura that he exudes out into the universe that everybody was responding to. It's not this rah-rah stuff. It's not this fire up stuff. He can do that too, for sure. But it's just, for lack of a better word, it's like having your dad around. Everybody's cool if dad's around, right? That just everything's going to be okay. He knows how to fix this. He knows when to get excited. He knows when not to get excited. He's just a very, very cool customer along the way. And that's kind of what Andrew Whitworth was putting out in the universe. So who's that person right now? I mean, Matthew Stafford is the quarterback, so certainly a lot of this is going to fall to him, and he certainly has leadership qualities to be sure. But it's not the same as having the 6'7", 330-pound, been in the league for a million years. Everybody in the organization looks up to him, and he's going to set the tone. The quarterback is kind of a different. He's the leader, whether he wants to be or not. But he's also super famous. He makes the most money. He's the guy that's on the TV commercials. He's the guy that gets interviewed before. All of those things that come. That's just life as a quarterback. So you can't be the down and dirty and nasty guy the way that your left tackle can be. So who's that guy? Does it fall to Rob Havenstein? Does it fall to somebody else? Does it go to a Cooper Kupp type of guy? It's just, when you have leadership like that, it is so important. And I think it's one of those things that until it's missing, it's very hard to quantify how much of an impact it has. I was struck by how many people were mentioning him. And you see him out of camp, and you know that he's around the team, and he's going to be broadcasting on Amazon and all these things. He's a present guy. But it's one thing to pick up the phone. It's another thing to have somebody come over to your house and lift weights in your garage and all these things. And it's another thing to be in that meeting room every single day, to be in that huddle every single snap, to be able to look in the eyes of the other guy in the huddle and say, guys, we're okay. Or, hey, we need to get going, or whatever the message might be. It's very different when it's coming face to face in a daily basis, or just saying, okay, this is what we need to do, as opposed to, hey, I noticed in this game 2 weeks ago you were doing that. It's not quite the same impact. I think this is something that for me is right near the top of the list on something to see how it evolves once you get into that season. His absence, his leadership absence, his football absence for sure. But his leadership absence, I think, is going to be one of the biggest challenges for the Rams moving forward. It's one of the biggest challenges for Sean McVay to try and address. And one of the biggest challenges for the other 11 guys that are going to be on that offense and the other 50-some-odd guys that end up making this team. Who fills the void of Andrew Whitworth? Aaron Donald can do a great deal of it, but he can't do it all. And Andrew Whitworth will be missed. You could tell by how often his name came up over the last couple of days. Okay, so injuries, always part of camp. Injuries, always part of football. But has the Rams injury bug shown up a little bit earlier than usual? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. So if you haven't tried the new Built Buff Puff, you are doing it wrong. You are denying yourself a true pleasure, right? Here's what it is. A new flavor. It is delicious, indulgent cookie dough. And of course, because it comes from Built Bar, it is covered in chocolate. Let me introduce you to one of my new favorites, the Cookie Dough Chunk Puff. It has a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks. And of course, like all Built Bars, it is covered in 100% real chocolate. And just like all Built Bars as well, right? Only 160 calories and a whopping 15 grams of protein in it, which means you can feel really good about making that choice. How many choices do you make? Like, oh man, I probably shouldn't have done that. You're never going to feel that way with Built Bar. It is a great snack. And by the way, you're going to probably want to hide them from your family too, because they are that good along the way. And what's great about Built is they have all their bars. They're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides a ton of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. Go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. Let me tell you again, go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off of your order. One more time, LOCKED15 at Built.com. All right, so let's start right here. This is something that happens, right? This is something that you just deal with life in the NFL, and that is guys going down and getting hurt, and sometimes it's nobody's fault. It just happens along the way. And let's start right here with Van Jefferson. The Rams wide receiver core is probably one of the strengths of this team, right? This is a team that has not just one, but two very, very high level wide receivers. Cooper Kupp is the guy that has won the Triple Crown wide receiver last season, most receptions, most touchdowns, and most yards. Go ahead. That means what it means. Allen Robinson has already made an incredible impact in a very short period of time at camp. So he's been doing a great job. He has massive expectations, and I think that he's going to meet just about all of them along the way. So you got two very good players. Odell is somebody that I think everybody expects to be back. You saw Sean McVay on the NFL Network over the weekend say that they expect him back. He kind of said, I know, Odell, I know you heard that. So it feels like that's inevitable, barring something, who knows what happens, right? But Van Jefferson, I think, is a very important part of what it is that they do. And he had a knee injury towards the end of last season that they were trying to work through. Doesn't seem like they've been able to do it. And now he's getting ready for a procedure on his knee that's going to cause him to miss a few weeks. And, anytime you hear that, who knows, right? Maybe he is down for a few weeks. A few weeks would mean he's ready to go at the start of the regular season. But if it's a little bit more than a few weeks, that means that you could be pushing it back towards, the second week of the season, third. Who knows how long it goes by? So now the question becomes, who are plans, B, C, D, E, and F? The really interesting one, I think, right out of the chute is Tutu Atwell. Tutu Atwell has been somebody that I think people are writing off. And I don't know if that's unfair or not, but he was their first pick, not a first round draft pick, but he was the Rams' first pick in the 2021 draft in the second round. The Rams said, not pick the player yet. We'll take Tutu Atwell. It's rare that you see a player that is picked in that spot where you literally know nothing about him, especially coming into his second year. This is a guy who was, I don't mean this disrespectfully. I just mean this as a statement of fact. He was a total non-factor. He got hurt very early in the season. He didn't play, and that was that. He's very small. He's very fast. And I know I've told this story before, but I'll say it again. Watching him in the preseason and watching him return kicks very early in the regular season before he went down, every time he touches the ball, you're thinking, okay, this is it. They get their hands on him. They're going to break this guy in half. And they did. He got hurt, and that was it, and he was done. Now, Les Snead and Sean McVay have done an unbelievable job of making sure that they've hit on their draft pick. They don't have first-round draft picks. They haven't had one for a long time. They won't have one for a long time. So they've had to be very, very good about finding players in the second, third, right on down the line, the guys that you can slide in and play. That makes me feel better about Tutu Atwell, that a guy like Les Snead and Sean McVay thought enough of him to use their second-round pick on him. But, man, well, now's his opportunity, right? Jefferson is down. Jefferson is going to miss time. How much time will be determined, but it's an opportunity for him to step in that void. And if he doesn't, who knows what happens? Who knows? And I'm not talking about for the Rams. I don't think that Tutu Atwell either be playing great or not playing at all is going to determine how much success they have. I'm talking about him for his career. If they don't get him on the field, if he's not able to, if he has another year where he gets hurt or he just is a total non-factor, I don't know what you do with him at that point, because we're further and further down the road with him. And I know they were not 5 years down the road, but if you're a year, didn't play year one, year two, you can't sniff, and you're a second-round draft pick, that is a significant red flag along the way. So keep your eye on that injury to Van Jefferson. It also might speed up the opportunity to re-sign Odell Beckham Jr. too, right? That Odell coming back, look, he's not going to be ready to play right away, but you may be thinking, look, if Van Jefferson's got a knee, and it's something that may linger. It may be something that instead of taking a couple weeks, maybe it takes a couple months. And again, I'm speculating here, but maybe let's get him back sooner than later so we can put him on there. And then we know that we got that position covered ultimately. We still got our three guys or maybe even four guys when Van Jefferson comes back. I think that's an opportunity for them right there. And then it's everything else, whether it's Skoranek or all these other guys that you've had in the camp that have been, able to come in here and do it, at Jacob Harris, one of these sorts of guys. There are other guys, and this is what training camp is about. What'll be interesting to see about Atwell specifically is whether or not they use him in training camp. If he doesn't get used, that means, or I shouldn't say training camp, I should say the exhibition season. If he doesn't get played much in the exhibition season, that means that they're going to use him during the regular season, because we know how Sean McVay does it. Now, if he does play in the exhibition season, I think that means he might play during the regular season. They just want to see whether or not he can play at an NFL level, because I still think that that's something that is very, very much up in the air, whether or not he can hang physically in the NFL. Very, very fast, very, very dangerous, assuming that you can't get your hands on him, but also so far, very, very susceptible to a shot or two, and that being it. He is not a big man, and we'll see whether or not that prevents him from having NFL success. Okay, somebody that has had a ton of NFL success. We may not be talking nearly enough about him. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. So, because the Rams are so loaded with star players, because the Rams are so aggressive in free agency, because the Rams have been so aggressive in the trade market over the years. It's funny because we are on the baseball trade deadline. There's players flying all over the place, and this guy's going here and that guy's going there, and where's Juan Soto going, and everything else. That you forget that in football, football trades don't happen unless you're a member of the Los Angeles Rams, and then football trades happen a lot. The point of all of this is, and especially with the star players, and it's Matthew Stafford, it's Sean McVay. I know he's not a player, but he's a star. It's Aaron Donald, right? It was Von Miller last year. It's OBJ. It's Cooper Kupp, who's a huge star. Andrew Whitworth is a named player in this league. So you got all these guys, and then they go into free agency this year, and they pull a guy like Allen Robinson out, who's a big name player in this year, a big time player. And because he's an offensive guy, people get very excited about what he might bring to the team and everything that comes along with that. Somebody who is not just a good player, but a great player, probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame, a guy that's been a multiple time All-Pro player, is Bobby Wagner. And he was very excited when he came here. And I think Rams fans were very excited when he showed up here. But it was kind of one of those, okay, cool, we got Bobby Wagner, put him over here and just kind of keep it moving. Okay, what's going to happen with Matthew Stafford? Cooper Kupp can have another big year. Allen Robinson, Aaron, everything that comes along with it. Bobby Wagner had a pick six at practice the other day. He picked off John Wolford. He takes it back 40 yards for a touchdown in the little controlled scrimmage that they had going on. I think this is going to be. I don't want to say it's a pleasant surprise because a guy that's made the first team All Pro as many times. I want to say it's 5 times off the top of my head. Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But think about what this defense has had over the last couple of years. You've had Aaron Donald, who is, one of one, as Sean McVay likes to say. And then you've got a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who's the best player at his position. And then you have Von Miller come in and do all sorts of unbelievable work. And then you've got guys that kind of pop up and start to get some notoriety, like whether it's a Sebastian Joseph Day last year or Greg Gaines when he stepped in there. You've had other guys like Ndamukong Suh and Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters and just Michael Brockers, all of these guys along the way. What am I leaving out here? Right? What name have you not heard? What position have I not mentioned in all of this stuff? It's linebacker, and specifically middle linebacker, right? This is something that the Rams have not had as a point of emphasis. This is something that, it's like anything else. It's almost like triage. We're going to spend our money over here. We're going to spend it over there. We're going to decide not to spend it in certain spots. And one of the places that they have decided not to spend it, where the places where they've had undrafted players play there, where they've had special teamers hold it down there, or very late round draft picks hold it down, is at middle linebacker. And now they got Bobby Wagner. Look, he may not be the Bobby Wagner from 5 years ago, but he's still Bobby Wagner. He's still going to be a very, very good player for a number of years moving forward. And that pick six that he dropped in there, I think is just incredible evidence of that this is somebody that, hey, we might be talking about him a whole bunch, but this is a guy that's going to have an unbelievable impact on your team week after week after week. I'll tell you right now, we're sitting here on August 2nd, right? By the time we are at the end of September, there will be a segment in the podcast that is, I knew Bobby Wagner would be good, but I didn't think he'd be this good. Because it's going to happen. We have not seen a Rams defense where middle linebacker has been featured the way that it is. And then he's playing with Aaron Donald and he's playing with Jalen Ramsey. That's going to be a pretty remarkable deal. He's going to be terrific. And I think that was just a very important reminder that, hey, I've been to a bunch of Pro Bowls too. Hey, I've been first team All Pro, just like Jalen Ramsey, just like Aaron Donald, and just like Cooper. I am here for this as well. Get ready for me. Cannot wait. Absolutely can't wait. In the words of Bart Scott, can't wait. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rams. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Now make your second listen to the Locked On NFL podcast. Our national NFL experts and insiders keeping you dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league, because an offseason does not equal a break in the action. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.